Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in this lovely world of ours. I'm Russ, Xbox Live Toaster 360. He is Steve, Xbox Live Stevavitch. And we have found ourselves already into the month of August, which is insane.
Seems like just yesterday we were saying Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is episode 133. And wow, yeah. August 3rd, 2019. Oof. It's, I don't know. I was a bit surprised by that when we were looking at the date today, and I was like, ooh, this summer is just kind of blasting by. And not that I'm necessarily against that because it gets pretty hot, but actually we've had an uncharacteristically mild summer.
That's what you said last year.
It continues to be that way. Well, last year, like for the most part, it was milder, but there was like, I would say by the time we hit August, it got pretty uncomfortably hot. But for some reason this year, though, I mean, we've had like rain over and over and over again through June, July, and even like today, for instance, we had rain.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I mean, it caused the temperature to drop again. So
yeah, it was about 80. It was continued to be 80 degrees, and it was nice.
I'm telling you. When August hits around here, it's normal for it to be between 100 to 110 degrees plus humidity. So, like I said, not complaining at all, but it's very, I don't know, it's very different. So, anyway, we're doing things a little more haphazardly this episode just because I've been pretty busy working on
El Studio.
That's right. So we're going to forego, of course, you might have noticed our Joygasm, our feature Joygasm moment will not be aired this episode. We'll continue that in the next episode. So. But we can talk about what each of our personal Joygasm of the week has been. Steve, what is your personal Joygasm of the week?
You know, I haven't had one, Russ. I've hardly done any kind of game. I've done a little bit, as in like this morning, but that's been about it. I've hardly watched anything all week. I have watched some stuff, but nothing really stood out.
Yeah.
You know, nothing was a kabang, a boom, like oh, wow, that was amazing. So awesome. Very cool. Golly. Mm-hmm. None of that stuff, Russ.
Well, I had one. I actually had a few that were in the running, but the one that won out was me actually watching Jim Lee's Twitch channel. And I think he's been doing this now for about 2 years. But for me, I had kind of started seeing in my YouTube searches that he was having little drawing tutorials here and there and that sort of thing. And so I got used to watching him a bit on YouTube. And then finally, I started going over to Twitch and seeing what all the fuss was about, so to speak. And I got to say, I am very happy and excited to be able to see that he apparently, if I understand it correctly, I think he is giving one drawing tutorial. It's either per week or every other week. I'm not exactly sure how the schedule works out, but absolutely fantastic. Everybody, I think, on the show knows as well as you do that I'm a huge Jim Lee fan. And just the fact that he's making time to be able to just give these little tutorials, and the tutorials themselves, I mean, they could last anywhere between like 30 minutes to an hour. I mean, it's pretty involved, and he'll take some sort of focused approach, whether it's drawing heads at a 3/4 angle or it's drawing, how to draw the backside of an arm anatomically correct. Or maybe he'll do like a full body drawing. In fact, there was one that he did when Stan Lee recently passed. That week, he ended up drawing Spider-Man, which, I mean, to my understanding, I think that's a pretty big rarity for him to actually draw that character, simply because he's never had to draw in the past. When he was at Marvel, he was focused on X-Men. And then, of course, he went to Image and had his own characters. And now he's at DC. So it was a pretty cool treat to be able to see him sketch out his rendition of the Webhead. But I mean, I think it is tremendously valuable to be able to watch him do his thing, especially considering that, you know, for me, I haven't really gotten down and sketched in years. I am so rusty and everything else.
I was going to say something to you.
But I got to say, watching him has inspired me to break out my Bridgman books, which those were some of the criteria back when I was in college. I was taking figure drawing. Bridgman is kind of like the go-to standard. And I was really happy to hear Jim actually talk during his tutorials. I guess someone was asking, hey, who are some classically trained artists that you can recommend when you start studying how to draw? And he immediately went to Bridgman as well. So I was like, oh, right on. That's cool. So that was my Joygasm of the week, Steve. I definitely look forward to being able to be a steady fan and watcher of the stuff that he puts up there. So.
Speaking of watching, I did watch A Quiet Place.
Oh, what did you think?
It was definitely long, as hardly anybody spoke, but it was different, which is a good thing.
Yeah, pretty intense at times, I thought.
Yeah, I kind of, you know, if people aren't speaking all that much, then they really have to express with their face and their nonverbal body language, right? And so that's basically what the whole movie was. It kind of ended like I thought it was going to end. I didn't expect some stuff to happen, which did, but yeah, I enjoyed it. You know, for a PG-13 thriller kind of movie, it was pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool movie. I ended up watching it on Xbox Live. And it's neat to see a married celebrity couple tag team a creative project like that. I thought they did a great job.
Yeah.
So,
you know, it's funny. I cannot watch that thriller movies that night anymore. I need to make my mind calm, which is funny because I watch 24 before I go to bed, and for some reason I can still watch that and be fine. But like real kind of scary-ish thriller movies, not. So I had to watch it like during the day.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if my energy was up, I could just go to the gym, get it out. But before I went to bed, nah.
So what else have you been up to this week? Have you been playing anything?
Not particularly. I mean, this morning I got a little further in Call of Duty World War II. I feel like I'm getting towards the end of it. I gotta be.
Yeah.
But the missions are relatively short. I wish they were. I wish it was longer, and I wish it wasn't such like on the rails. Like I was playing it earlier today, and there's things in the game you can do, like if there's a wounded soldier, you can grab him, you can pull him aside to kind of safety, which will keep him alive instead of him just laying out there calling for help and then ending up dying.
Right, right.
But you don't know. I don't know where I'm pulling him, but I could hear calls for help, and I start turn around and run the other way so I can help my army, the military,
your squad or your platoon,
my platoon,
your people.
I'm trying.
Your army, your soldiers,
my men in uniform with guns,
my Homo sapiens, my individuals,
the people who are not shooting me. I was trying to help them.
The people in helmets that were not trying to actively kill me.
I couldn't think of the word.
The people who were blending into their environment very well.
I was thinking of pee, platypus, puppy, popcorn.
Your brain's like.
So anyhow, I ran the other way, which I was trying to get to. I ran the other way.
It's amazing how productive that is to run the other way.
Right.
In many situations.
And then I would get this message on the screen saying, "You're basically we're gonna kill you if you." I mean, it was a red skull that said "leaving mission." So I thought, okay, if I go too far away, it's just gonna kill me. Maybe they would think I was
stand and fight, soldier.
Right. So all I wanted to do was help people out. But so it's really just on the rails, which I guess to some extent they have to keep it that way. But I don't really care for that. Anyhow.
Well, as you know, I have been enjoying playing Alien Isolation. We actually Twitched that. I know that you were a bit bored, though.
I was crazy bored.
Yeah, I think a game like that is much more intense for the person who's actually playing it. Because for me, like, it was just the whole premise of that game is it's a cat and mouse game mechanic. So you never know when the alien's going to drop in on you. They randomize it. It's procedural every time. So you don't know how it's going to happen. So you wind up having to really tiptoe around. And if you run or you make sudden movements and stuff, that's going to attract more deadliness your way.
More peril. See, there's a P word.
There you go. Yes. So I apologize that you were bored by it, but I was really looking forward to being able to show you the game just because it is a very unique experience. I would say like if you were to actually give it a try, I'd be curious to see if you still felt bored or if you're like, ooh, yeah, okay, I'm feeling the immersive ambiance of it because the game really does a nice job of drawing you in. In fact, I would say it's almost like the movies in that regard, where the movies almost has this really sneaky way of drawing you into the world of aliens and kind of the oppressive sci-fi, I don't know, just the nuances that are there. And I really think that the game developers did a really nice job of recreating that in earnest. And you can tell that just as you go along, and I know you haven't, I keep forgetting, we need to get you caught up because you've never seen the Alien movies.
I put it on the list. Well, you have it. Do you have it?
I have Aliens.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I have I have to check my library. I don't remember if I have the first Alien, but I do have Aliens, which is the James Cameron film.
It's on my list. Here, I'll move it up for you.
There, well, thank you.
I'll
Steve.
move it up.
Oh, thank you, Steve. So anyway, I played that, and what else did I do? I ended up watching Avengers: Infinity War.
Okay.
Just because I was in the mood for a little Infinity War action. I think just due to last week's announcement of them getting to the King of the Hill, it just forced me. Well, not forced me, but I found myself. How about that for an F word?
Yeah, wow, really.
I found myself being in the mood to want to be able to watch it again, and oh man, that's so good. It's such a great film. And I found myself thinking also about how any one of these Marvel movies is just so fun to be able to pop in at just a random notice and relive the enjoyment of those films, which is saying something because for me, my favorite all-time comic book character is Batman, which is DC. And I often find that the Marvel films, obviously, they're not designed to be as dark as The Dark Knight. But having said that, it's still just really fun. The chemistry in those films is some of the best I've seen in a long time. And they just keep it going in that regard with the relationships.
By the way, Netflix rates Alien a 2-star for me. Aliens, plural.
Yes.
As 3.5 stars.
I would say Aliens is probably my favorite out of the entire bunch.
But I got to watch the first one before the second one.
Yes.
Okay.
It's one of those films that, well, I would say series or franchise. How about franchise? Franchise is a good word. I would say it's the type of franchise where you really do need to watch it chronologically. And actually, you are at a bit of an advantage just because you'll be able to watch some of this stuff. And then when you get to Prometheus, if you end up watching Prometheus.
I heard Prometheus wasn't that good.
Okay, so Prometheus, there are things about it that are very well done. The art direction is extremely well done. Some of the new ideas that they introduce into the world of it is very well done. I think the problem, and I think that this is kind of, it's a problem that extends, I think, ever since Alien 3, I would say, which is that I think the creators don't really know how to move forward necessarily. Like it's almost the case of X-Files. Like when you watch the X-Files TV show, they were all about answering questions by bringing up new questions and having that sense of mystery to it. And it really captivated an audience for quite a while. But then the audience started to kind of get fed up with not ever really knowing what the heck was going on. It was almost like they were a slave to their own creative content, if that makes any sense. So anyway, for me, I think that that's kind of the case. But I will say that with Ridley Scott being back in the director's chair with Prometheus and then the Alien movie that came out after that, they were starting to answer some of kind of more of the I guess you could call it legacy questions in terms of the origins of how the aliens came to be and that sort of thing. So I'll leave it at that because you haven't seen it. And,
okay.
I'd be curious to see. Obviously, it's it's kind of like the survival horror sci-fi genre. And I don't really know how you feel about that type of movie. I don't even know what kind of movies you've seen that are in that genre.
It's been a minute. Russ?
I mean, can you think of anything that like even is remotely close to that?
No, not anything in the very recent past. No, it's been a while. It's been a while, Russ.
Well,
But to be fair, there hasn't been a whole lot of movies made like that have been really good of that genre recently.
yeah. Well, okay. Actually, I'm going to disagree because Blade Runner 2049 came out.
Yeah, I wouldn't
And while
classify that as
I wouldn't classify it as survival horror, but I do classify it as that dystopian sci-fi future type of movie. So like it was a bit different, just in terms of the horror element of it. But other than that, it's actually very much in line.
it didn't have any horror element to it. It was way sci-fi.
Well, yeah. I mean, and did you see you didn't see the first Blade Runner, did you?
Yes, I did.
You did.
Oh man.
Okay.
I didn't see like the director's cut.
I would go so far as to say the first one actually bared more of a similar resemblance to Aliens in the sense that you had the replicants who were very much trying to go after Harrison Ford's character. In fact, at the very end, you had kind of the leader of the replicants that was hunting him and everything else. And while he didn't have like a little mini head inside of his mouth that came out and trying to get him, there was still very much that element of fear that was there. So are you sure you've seen it? The first one?
Yes. Matter of fact, I made you watch it with me one more time before we went to see Blade Runner 49 in this room.
Okay.
You forgot about that too. Nice.
I do. Steve, my pigeonholes are full. I've got a lot going on these days. But that's what makes it so fun to talk to someone like me. It's like I'm hearing something for the first time, even though I've heard it like 10 times already. Well, bust out your action-packed testosterone. It's time for the topic of the day.
Pick a door.
All right then.
No, that's my door. Pick another door.
What's wrong with you? You know what? You were right. This is your door.
What's the matter? You got a lot of bad guys behind that door?
Access granted. Access denied. Access denied. Access denied.
Luke Hobbs and Deckard Shaw. We've got unfinished business. Shaw's sister took something from me. A virus that could wipe out half the population, and I want it back.
You want to tell me just what we're dealing with here?
It's my sister. Family business.
When it's the fate of the world, it becomes my business.
This whole thing sounds really dodgy. Look after your sister.
Listen, I'll handle it.
The only way we survive is working together, like a team.
Let's do this.
Buckle up, fat boy.
On my 3. 1! Woo! Hey, see the look on his face? You have no idea how long I've been waiting to do that.
Yeah, 'cause it's water time!
The music's already started. Let's see if we can get it in sync.
So you guys are being hunted by an army of mercenaries led by a genetically enhanced soldier.
Look at me. I'm Black Superman.
You're crazy.
Damn. He really is Black Superman.
The
need to get off the grid.
Where?
Home.
My baby's come home.
I'm sorry to bring trouble here, Mama, but I need my brothers. This family is going to war. We're gonna need cars and guns. Mama, where's all our guns?
I get rid of them. Very noble, Mrs. Hobbs. We are in serious trouble.
That's an understatement.
Let's get old school. Well, all right.
Come on! For this war time!
We're going for a ride! Woo!
Tell me this is not happening.
And I hope that's the last time I see that trailer. I've seen, man, I think every single time we've been to the theater, they've played that trailer.
They have really marketed this one aggressively, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
Well, our topic of the day is our review of Fast and Furious Hobbs and Shaw. I believe is the correct full-length title.
Fast and the Furious presents
Well, see, I
Hobbs and Shaw.
okay, I think the presents is correct. I think though they took out the thes. I think it's just Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw. That's an interesting one to look at here. Let me take a look. Yeah, I'm correct. On IMDb, it's Fast and Furious, but you are correct, Stephen, that the word presents is present. And that pun was intended. Now, I am particularly curious about what your high-level thoughts are of this film. Of course, it goes without saying, we're going to give our spoiler-free high-level impressions of the film before we take the spoiler elevator down and drill down into the spoiler version of what took place. So, Steve.
What?
Do tell.
Yeah, okay. Well,
well.
so I will say, let me just start off. Okay. Let me just start off saying it wasn't as bad as I thought, but I set the bar pretty low. Because, I mean, like,
Let me stop you right there. Are you a Fast and Furious fan by tradition standards? Like,
no.
Or have you been a fan of the older Fast?
No.
And Furious?
Well, I would not call myself a fan. No. I enjoyed the
'Cause
first.
you're a car guy.
I enjoyed the first film. Didn't really enjoy the second film too much. The third film I really did enjoy. Matter of fact, I own the third film. And then after that, I just really stopped paying attention, I'll be honest.
Don't they have like 4, 5, 6, and 7?
They definitely have 5, Fast 5. That's I think that was it. I don't know anything past that one. But anyway, Paul Walker died.
Yes.
And so that was a big hit to the series. The series is still popular.
Oh, it's insanely popular.
Oh, man.
Every time I talk to people, they're just, it's a very lucrative franchise. Continue.
So I think they had to satisfy the fans because the fans are going, okay, what's happening with this franchise? And Hollywood still wants to make money with it. So I think this was like an interim kind of movie because a lot of the other actors and actresses from the series did not make an appearance. They're not there. It's literally just Hobbs and Shaw. So I think this just was like a placeholder kind of marker in between to keep the fans happy and salivating for more until they figure out whatever they're going to do with the story.
Okay.
But so I did set the bar relatively low. I thought, okay, here we go. We're gonna go see this thing. That being said, I was entertained, but after that, it just kind of got old a little bit quick. It was an action movie, predictable. It seemed like the story was just there to kind of connect all the rest of the action. But I did like seeing, of course, I mean, Dwayne Johnson's always great on camera. I mean, the dude just he has wonderful presence.
Screen presence, sure.
And Jason Statham is the classic kind of cookie cutter character that he always plays, which is absolutely fine. I think if you go to the movie to see Jason Statham, you're going to feel bad if he doesn't act exactly like that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So, and it's kind of funny because actors don't want to be typecast that way, but with Jason Statham, I mean, since he's played so many other characters, you know, it kind of just fits him.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I did like seeing both of them on screen. It's funny because Jason Statham could really have the chemistry with whoever it is who's like the lead role, like Sylvester Stallone. He could still have the chemistry with him in Expendables. And in this one, he could still have the chemistry with Dwayne Johnson. So anyway, that's saying something for him.
So would you recommend this film to some of the folks who haven't seen it yet or not?
Well, I would say if you're really just looking to put your brain at the door and not think about anything and you just want to go have some laughs and some giggles and be like, whatever, I'm just going to watch it, you know, just like I did, then fine. I don't know about if it's worth, you know, spending top dollar and waiting in line at the theater. However, you just want an action flick and have some fun and, you know.
You owe me money for that ticket, by the way.
Yeah, I haven't forgotten about that, right?
So I'm kind of in the same boat as you where, okay, so for myself, like I, historically speaking, have not been a huge Fast and the Furious fan. And so, but what was really weird was like when I saw the trailers for this particular film, I was the one who was starting to kind of get us in the mindset to go check it out. And it was the weirdest thing because I think this particular film is it's kind of a splintering off story from the main story of Fast and the Furious because you didn't have all the normal actors and the characters that the Fast and the Furious is known for. And so I think that's partly why I was really interested in it because it had more of that kind of elite spy versus spy, espionage, save the world kind of thing to it. But it wasn't like, oh, let me, you know, have my souped up car with nitro go racing around again.
Right.
And I found that very appealing. Plus, I'm a fan of The Rock, and I'm even more of a fan of Jason Statham, like you said. So, I mean, it was for some reason the chemistry in that. And I think what sold me on it was that whole scene where like he asked, he was like, "What door you want?" He's like, "I'll take that door." And he goes, "No, that's my door. Pick another door." You know, just there was, and we'll talk much more about this later on. But I really found myself just having more of an affinity with the chemistry between the two of them as they were almost bickering, not even bickering, but they were like giving each other hard times and crap like brothers do, honestly, like when you're teasing each other and whatever else. And I thought, man, you know what? I think if they can continue doing that throughout the film, I think I'm going to find myself kind of having a good time with this. So I do agree, though. I think that in terms of it being an action movie, the plot line itself was just very predictable. Honestly, I think that the trailers themselves, I didn't realize how much the trailer just gave. I mean, the trailer basically showed the entire movie over the course of about 2.5 minutes. But having said that, though, I must say it was a fun movie. Definitely park your brain at the door kind of thing. If you want to just go have a fun type of action movie, it's over the top. It's pretty ridiculous. It's no John Wick. I will say that. John Wick is like if you want like what I go to when I get all jazzed on an action movie, it's like John Wick. That's like, I think it's the same for you.
Well, yeah. Well, that one's a pure action movie. This one's more like action. I mean, this is exactly action comedy. Yeah. It's not action like slapstick comedy,
right? But
it's definitely action comedy.
Yeah, it has a bit more of a lighter side. So,
but I will make one more point here, Russ. Make one more point. Thank you.
Sure, Steve.
So, what might have been the goal also is that you don't have to see all the other Fast and Furious movies, as I'm sure you found out last night, to really understand what's going on with this movie. It's not, and I don't think so, and that's why they didn't call this like Fast and Furious 6 or 7 or 25 or whatever the number is, because it's splintering off. So I think it might be.
It's almost like a standalone.
It's a standalone film to get more people to watch it, to please the fans, but get more people into it, so they think, okay, what else happened in the Fast and Furious? I mean, and Dwayne Johnson said like he's saved the world before, so
like
maybe
this is the fourth time or something like that. He was
exactly.
saying,
So that might be another goal of theirs with the movie.
Well, what I want you to do, Steve, is I want you to saunter into this elevator with me. Can you do that?
When you say you're...
I'm sorry. I couldn't understand that from phlegm.
When you say your T's, you can't really pronounce the T. It's more like... So you can't say elevator. It's more like, I want you to get in to this elevator.
That's very true. Well, how about you say it the way you say it, and I'll say it the way I say it. Now push the button. We haven't even started to move yet.
I like pushing buttons.
Now you push the... I didn't say it. Don't push that button. Push that button.
I'll push all the buttons. And there's no way you can stop me.
Oh, look what you did there. You're just being a little bloody wanker over there, aren't you? There's no way to get down to the spoiler floor. Did you bring all your guns?
I seem to have left my knives at home.
You left your knives?
Left my knives.
Well, what did you think? We're going to a bloody picnic? Did you at least bring the butter knife? I do believe this is our floor. Now, why don't you get out of me way?
So we are at the spoiler edition of this podcast. So if you haven't seen the movie, make sure you don't keep listening. Unless you just don't care, then keep listening, because we don't care. So as it applies to the plot, there really wasn't much of a plot. It's your typical kind of, there's some sort of horrible situation going on, whether it's a virus or it's a nuclear bomb, and it could wipe out most of humanity kind of thing, which, hey, that works in an action movie. I think what is worth kicking this whole thing off is the dynamic that we touched upon earlier, which is I really do love the chemistry between The Rock and Jason Statham's characters. I think that them having that kind of constant bickering and almost like kind of a testosterone fest against each other. Honestly, those are probably my favorite parts of the film. I loved it when they started to just give each other crap.
Well, one scene, the beginning, it was fine. However, it seemed like that was going to be a theme throughout the movie. After like the second time, I thought, okay, here we go again. And then there was another time, and then another time. And granted,
you are such a negative Nancy.
Well, no, I mean, if you have a joke and you say, okay, that joke was funny, and we know it's all funny, so later on, let's mix the joke up and then say it again, and so we'll get another laugh. It's almost like a cheap way to not write something else.
I know what you're saying, but I disagree in this instance because the way that the setup of the joke takes place, it lends itself to opportunities to be able to like have a different like starting point. And then they just play off each other for that. I don't know. Like I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But like there was that time when they were in the interrogation room, and there was another time when they were on the jet one was just super funny with them going back and forth. But I must say that was one of the big high points for me personally was that. And then the other component was actually the surprises that I had no idea was in store for us, which is Ryan Reynolds was in it.
Right.
And those were some of my favorite scenes too, was like just the banter going back. In fact, I think that's a better word for it. It's not that they were like bickering so much as it's more of like a banter going back and forth. It was just hilarious just watching them go back and forth. And I think they did a really good job with the casting of it, because I don't think they could have pulled that off if they had cast other people for that role. But I think, like Dwayne Johnson, for instance, he comes from the WWE. Like they're known to trash talk each other, and that's part of the fun of watching WWE is watching these crazy ripped burly dudes like just go to town against each other, and you know, it's just fun to watch that. So we have him, and then watching someone like Jason Statham, who obviously he's from the UK, and you know, he's as cool as a cucumber, you know, just nothing phases him, but to watch him get kind of tweaked and stuff is just really funny. And it brought me back to the Snatch days with some of the lines that he had with Tommy and stuff, and how he get kind of, you know, frustrated with him or I don't know, just feeling exasperated.
Actually, it's funny you say Snatch because it seemed like there was directing elements similar to Guy Ritchie.
Yes.
As far as like the timing between conversations.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but I had that feeling at times where like it wasn't like front and center, but it was definitely like, it just kind of entered my brain for a moment or two here and there. And again, also, what the heck is his name?
Who was it, Russ?
The other surprise cameo, which was
Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart. I wanted to say Kevin Smith. I'm like, I know it's not Kevin Smith. But yeah, I mean, seeing Kevin Hart all of a sudden wheel around on the jet and just start doing his thing too. And of course, we know that Kevin Hart and Dwayne Johnson have this really dynamic, fun on-screen presence together. When like Jumanji, for instance, was just hilarious, and some of the other ones. And of course, if you watch them on social media, they're always giving each other a hard time, just teasing each other, and it's all in good jest. But it's fantastic to be able to bring some of these guys into the fold for this particular movie. And honestly, my opinion is I would love it if they actually continue to extrapolate that out farther, where like they continue to bring in more of these edgy comedians and stuff into the film. Because it would just be hilarious, like over and over, you know, depending on what they are. And they don't have to constantly be on Dwayne's side or Jason Statham's side. Maybe they're villains or whatever, or maybe they're neutral characters. I don't know. But if they were to spend time actually fleshing out this world, honestly, I think that would be one of the pillars of the film moving forward if they were to make sequels. And of course, keep, you know, Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Hart, that sort of thing. Keep them going because, I mean, it's just, I don't know. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I thought it was it was a welcome element. Let me put it that way, because the other Fast and Furious movies, it was too much about being cool and this crazy off the wall chain, never would happen story about taking a bunch of street racers and somehow employing them with the government, and, you know, whatever. I mean, that's the way it was going for a while. In the beginning, it didn't start out that way, but I think this was a different element to, let's just not take ourselves seriously. Let's laugh at us for a minute, you know, and I definitely a welcome relief. I like the banter. I like Kevin Hart being in there. Well, here's the thing with Ryan Reynolds. We were talking about Jason Statham being typecast. Ryan Reynolds is starting to be typecast because he talks. It's almost like... for some reason it works with Statham and it doesn't work with Ryan Reynolds, because when Ryan Reynolds comes on screen, he talks like Ryan Reynolds, and I think Deadpool, or I think any minute he's gonna be Deadpool, or he's gonna be like the groom from The In-Laws or something, you know. And I don't know, I can't see him as anything else.
See, okay, so I actually think he's a lot in the same vein as Jason Statham, where like he has such a sharp wit, and I've always been a fan of his in all of his movies, even like the romantic comedies like Just Friends. He's hilarious. And I think it depends on the movie itself, because sometimes he'll have more of that biting, sharp, machine gun mouth wit. And other times he scales that back a little bit and just it kind of paces himself a bit more. And I think it just depends on the source material, but I really do. And especially for a film like this, I thought it was so fun just to watch him just go off the hinges. And honestly, I wonder if most, if not all of what he says is completely ad-libbed, because it's so him. It's so quintessentially Ryan Reynolds. I don't think that what he had to say was in a script. maybe there was like some sort of outline that he kind of adhered to, but like overall, I think that was mostly just Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds. And for me, like I've always been a huge fan of just watching that take place, especially as it applies to the different celebrities who he plays off of. So like, for instance, like Dwayne Johnson it was so fun to watch those two do that thing together. Or like when he was in a film with Sandra Bullock, and I thought that was a lot of fun too. That was a different dynamic. So anyway, and I think Kevin Hart was great too. You know, like Kevin Hart, I felt was a little bit different because he has his own little stint that he does too. Like he's known for a certain type of projected persona that he emits. And I feel as though in this film, it was just a little bit different than like how he normally is, which is great. I thought it was really fun. I think it fit the kind of character that he was trying to be. I don't know, like I could almost, I know I'm kind of like spitballing on this, but I could almost see if they were to continue doing this, if they were to make a certain number of tweaks to it, it could almost be like a lighthearted version of John Wick. Only it would be two guys who were like the main characters in this world as opposed to just one. Again, there are certain tweaks that would be needed, but if they wanted to flesh it out and make it like this kind of a continuous thing, I don't know. I think it's possible.
Okay, Russ. I don't see where you're going with that at all. But sure,
thanks,
you know
Dave.
what?
Appreciate that.
I can. I'll play with that notion.
You play with it, Steve. What did you think of Idris Elba playing the antagonist?
You know, he was cool. I liked him. He wasn't way over the top, which was fine. I think he did a decent job. You know, when I saw him on screen, I thought, what if he played? I wonder if he was thought of to play the new Blade.
Oh, I'm sure they probably molded over a bit.
Yeah, but no, he was fine. I liked how. I mean, I don't know. He really owned the role, which was cool. I think he was a bit slow, like in the fighting, where if you're going to see fighting, you expect it to be pretty quick, fast, fast punches. And if you actually look through that preview, there's kind of, okay, here, punch, okay, dodge here. You know, maybe it was the choreographing, maybe it was him. I'm not really sure, but I know Jason Statham can fight a lot quicker than he was fighting in this movie.
So let's talk about that for just a minute. So in the fighting, I had kind of a love-hate relationship with the editing style of how they capture the fight scenes. I really loved kind of like the super slow-mo stuff, like if they had a punch that connected or something, and then you saw kind of like the damage being done in slow-mo, and you saw the sweat or drool or something just kind of like emit out in slow motion. I thought that was really well done. But to your point, I felt like some of the more like normal speed fighting was just, it looked too rehearsed. It didn't look spontaneous enough. Did you feel the same way?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah. So it's a bit different in that regard, which is unfortunate. Because like if you watch a movie like John Wick, I mean, John Wick's fighting is just topical. It's super, super cool. What did you think of Vanessa Kirby playing Jason Statham's sister?
You know, I think she was, during the dialogue moments, I think she was absolutely fine. I just don't think she was the right role for being a combatant. With the dialogue, it was great, and by and large, she did not do a bad job.
I like the dynamic of the brother-sister relationship between her and Jason Statham. Like I bought into them being siblings.
Right? No, I'm absolutely. But more of that was just the dialogue.
Yeah,
I'm just talking more with the combat, with the fighting. I couldn't get behind her doing the fighting, and there was too many scenes with like her face not in the scene, or the angle was at an angle where you couldn't see it. So I thought, okay, she's obviously not doing the fighting, and she doesn't portray herself as someone who knows how to do like mass combat and whatever. So it just lent itself to me thinking that, yep, stunt double here, stunt double there, stunt double here, versus like Jason Statham or Dwayne Johnson. I mean, they have stunt doubles too, but they also do a lot more moves in the movie.
What I just thought of is she was in one of the recent James Bond films.
Was it James Bond or was
no, it was Jack Reacher. No, Mission Impossible. I'm sorry, it was one of those. But actually, her being in
Tom Cruise was in 2 of those at least. 2 out of 3.
I thought that she was much more of a threat in Mission Impossible, and I think it was just the way that she played that character.
Right.
And there really wasn't any kind of fighting that her character did, but the type of
sophistication.
Well, yeah, like the approach that she brought to that character made it where I'm like, ooh, I would not want to mess with her at all. Versus like what you're talking about here, which maybe that was intentionally done. Maybe she was supposed to be like, she's a capable MI6 operative and stuff. Maybe her forte is not necessarily in hand-to-hand combat or something, but maybe it was a vehicle designed to like have more sympathy for her situation that she found herself in. Who knows? But I had another thought too, going back to the
Did you have another thought?
They just keep coming at me, Steve, like bullets. I have a bit of a beef with some of these final fight sequences, if you will, when it comes to these where
I
don't think they're brutal enough.
Oh, man. Listen to you. You got aliens on your mind, apparently.
Well, so I think about the final fight within this film. I like the setting. I liked how it was raining.
Sure.
And had lots of jagged rocks.
You're just saying it's not real enough. Like if there was if I had metal in my knuckles and I was bulletproof and I just punched you just because I felt like punching you. And
you have such violent tendencies.
Yeah, really. You would get a bruise on your face. And especially if I hit you like 6 times.
There would be lots of swelling, yeah.
Swelling, cuts, bruised, nicks. You're falling down on the dirt and the rocks. It's like you're missing a lot of that stuff.
You are. And actually, a film that does it really well, does a great job, in my opinion, is Lethal Weapon 4. Did you ever see Lethal Weapon 4?
I did. I saw it in the theater.
Okay. So, obviously, the main antagonist is Jet Li. And they're fighting on the docks, and there's... Oh, man, so many like hand-to-hand combat things that are going on. I think at one point, Mel Gibson like has his shoulder dislocated and he like slams it up against one of the dock beams, the wooden beams, to like try and get it back into place again. And just the amount of brutality that was there. Obviously, I didn't feel it was over the top or overdone or anything like that, but it felt raw. It felt real to me. It felt like, wow, this is a bit of a problem.
Well, it makes it hit home in a sense that, yeah, if you got kicked in the gut, you're going to lose your breath. If you got kicked in the face, you're going to look scraped up. Like there's some totality to it.
Well, and also too, like when you think of Danny Glover and Mel Gibson as they were trying to take on Jet Li, there was a lot more physical harm that was visible on their faces. I mean, they were really bleeding, and like it looked like, I think Danny Glover like missed it, like lost a tooth or something. I mean, like I said, it felt more palpable and tangible than what we saw with this particular film, because, and I mean, they had some, I mean, the environment alone. I mean, if you were to like just kind of like trip over your own foot and fall down on those rocks, that would freaking hurt. Those look like some pretty, I mean, literally the only move where I kind of went, whoa, was at the end when Dwayne like takes the bad guy and like does the whole like suplex thing.
Yeah.
And then his head like smashes up against the rock. I mean, that was like, okay, I felt that in my seat. But everything else was like, okay, like he has kind of a little red boo-boo on his cheek. I'm like, no, dude, like I want to see their faces thrashed. I want to see their bodies thrashed. I mean, if this is something that is close to like the fight of their lives, I really want to be able to feel it in the seat. For me personally, I just didn't really feel that way. And honestly, I don't know if the film was rated PG-13 or R. I have a feeling it's 13.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why.
Well, even if it's rated PG-13, I mean, if you think of it this way, I think that Disney made a live version of The Jungle Book a while ago.
Yeah.
And there was people dying throughout that entire movie. There was people getting like poisoned and shot and thrown off cliffs and stuff. I remember watching that as a kid thinking and that was PG.
Yeah.
So a PG-13, they can get away with more. I mean, it's not like they're, hacking off their limbs and stuff. You're just looking for a little bit more like roughed up, bleeding, bruised, and whatever.
I also really liked Helen Mirren, who was in it. She was Jason Statham's mom.
And she was in the movie Red, I believe.
She was, yeah. I really like her. She works with these types of films. I don't know. She just really fits nicely into it. And I don't really know too much about her acting career, prior to Red. But
Purple, maybe.
Stupid. Magenta. So, what else can we talk? The soundtrack itself, you know what? Okay, so the film didn't have really that much of a orchestral soundtrack, but I found myself actually digging like 3 of the songs that they had chosen, like the music that was inspired by the film or whatever you want to call it. I have no idea who those artists are, but I'm actually glad that I am talking about it now because I'm going to look up after this recording just the different songs on there because they had some pretty slick ones. I felt like.
Do you think so?
I did. I mean, like there were certain ones where, like, as they were pulling up to like a certain scene, and they got out of their cars and they're walking in and they're strutting or whatever. Like there were like 3 different songs that I actually at one point in the theater, I brought up SoundHound on my phone. And of course it was too little too late because by the time the app got loaded and the song stopped naturally. But that's how much I liked it. I was like, what's the name of this song?
It's funny you bring up soundtrack because towards the end of the movie, when they were running through that Russian weapons center or whatever, and I could hear the music playing in the back, and I thought, Russ and soundtracks. And then I thought, man, I don't see how anybody could enjoy listening to this. Just driving to work on the highway, all the just blaring music. Whatever. Yeah, I didn't really notice the soundtrack too much in it.
Well, what are your concluding thoughts on this? Unless you have any other points you'd like to make.
No, I would say that my concluding thoughts, I think this was a refreshing taste for the Fast and Furious movies. I like to get a break from the seriousness and kind of the hominess of the Fast and the Furious a bit. I like to go in the movie and have a little more fun and not think that I needed to look like Toretto.
Who's Toretto?
He's Dom. He's the buff dude, bald guy, the guy who's voice of Groot.
Oh, right. Okay, go ahead.
Vin Diesel. Vin Gasoline. So
Vin Unleaded.
Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, no, I enjoyed the movie. I don't think I'll probably give it a second look, but maybe if they brought out some deleted scenes or something. But I wish they had more car scenes in it.
That's ironic.
Yeah, really. I mean,
I don't want a Fast and Furious movie because of all the cars, but I kind of do want some more cars.
Yeah, they had them. They had the 720 McLaren in there in the beginning. That's the car you see Jason driving in the preview, and they had the motorcycles, which I think were Bramos, if I'm not mistaken. I could be totally wrong, but I think they're electric kind of hybrid motorcycles, which were cool. I thought they would be neat if they could do a little more with those, but you basically don't get a lot of car action until towards the end, which that doesn't really do much. They're kind of rat rods on the island, somehow getting traction and dirt. I don't know.
Yeah,
to me,
that particular scene too, where they're on the island and the choppers. I'm thinking that chopper could easily lift quite a few of those cars because those are like 2-seater cars, and it's a military chopper that is capable of holding like I don't even know like 12 people.
Yeah.
And, I don't know.
But yeah, with that scene when he flips on the nitrous and they all flip on the nitrous, but the tires are like street tires and they're in dirt. Yeah. Lose more traction. That's the best idea you have. Lose more traction when you're the only 2 wheels holding on to like, oh my gosh. Okay.
I do think when it comes to a scene like that though, see, I think this is one of the problems of the movie, which is they skirted the line between it being completely over the top, like just crazy over the top, versus trying to stay within the same vein as the Fast and the Furious. And even though the Fast and the Furious have certain stunts and scenes that you're just like, there is no way that would actually happen in real life, it's still grounded in this idea of like it's street racing. I think if they, from the get-go, like if this had nothing to do with the Fast and the Furious and they just had their own movie, And they intentionally made it where like, not only was it hard to believe that could actually happen in real life, there is absolutely no way that any of the things that they found themselves could actually be in real life. And they were unapologetic about it. Like, yeah, this is the direction we're going. I do think that then you would have much more buy-in and honestly, more of the audience willing the movie to like be even more outrageous, where it's like, what the heck is that?
Yeah, what is going on?
That would never happen, but that is so awesome.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you on your final thoughts. What review would you give it, Steve? What rating?
I would say 2.5.
Well, Steve, we are back in sync. I too give it a 2.5 star rating. I think the film was fun in parts. Like I said earlier, I think that there is massive potential for this to actually do really, really well. I think that they need to make certain tweaks with the film and have it fully be its own identity. I think when it comes to the banter, I think the banter and the chemistry between these larger than life actors and the characters they play is so paramount for this type of film. And I would really want to see them expand that and just have a lot more fun with it. Have more of the rivalries, the fun bickering, the teasing, maybe even when you have the buddy hookups and stuff, and they can trash talk the villains, that sort of thing. It almost makes me think of Rush Hour with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, because a lot of like the fast talking, chemistry, teasing, that sort of thing, that's one of the main pillars of what made those movies so fun to go watch.
I was actually thinking of Chris Tucker watching this movie. Whatever happened to Chris Tucker?
He just took time off. I think he got super famous really fast, and I think he just needed to have some alone time. I hope that he'll come back. But absolutely, I mean, Chris Tucker would be a completely natural fit for this type of film. And really, I mean, another film too that comes to mind is The Expendables. You know, like The Expendables was more of a bromance action movie, if you will, where like it had all of like your favorite action stars from like the 80s and 90s. But they didn't have as much of like the trash talk fun that this one had.
Right.
I think if they can marry like kind of like The Expendables, but with the WWE kind of mentality, and then throw in like your fast talking comedians, I think it'd be a blast.
Although they still had just as many fist bumps.
They had quite a few fist bumps. Yes. No, it was
Okay, brother, here's what we're going to do. All right, brother, I'm listening to you, brother. All right, brother.
I love it, dude. I remember just even back when it was called WWF, I absolutely loved all that. I thought it was great. But in terms of everything else that the movie had to offer, I would like to see the fighting choreography be a bit more snappy, a bit more original, and just have more of that brutality, that edginess, that sort of thing. And also just in terms of the film's storyline itself, I would like there to be, obviously in action movies, you're not going to have like this huge thought-provoking thing. But as we have seen with the Mission Impossible franchise, as we've seen with the James Bond reboot, as we've seen with John Wick, you can actually have a very intense plot line that you're on the edge of your seat. You're just like, man, this is awesome.
Yeah. Or like True Lies is another example.
Yeah, True Lies is an older example, but it is a very relevant example indeed. So that wraps up this episode of Joygasm. Make sure you tune in next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to check out patreon.com/Joygasm and consider becoming a monthly contributor. You'll get exclusive perks and early access to the show. Not to mention, it really helps us continue doing what we love to do. Also, you can follow us on social media and YouTube. Just do a search for Joygasm TV. Last but not least, search Joygasm TV on Twitch to see us stream our gaming adventures live every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. We will see all of you next week.